Okay, I love when things are working. Technology is working. We are live. Good evening, Dr. Kerry Olson and Dwight Jones. So nice to have you guys here tonight. And we are going to get right in because we are all like going in 3 different directions tonight. And I'm just so honored and excited to have you two on to talk about next steps for us in Denver Public Schools. But before we start, I want to give a brief bio for both of you so that people who may not know who you are know your extensive history. So I'm going to start with Dwight Jones, who is one of Colorado's most respected and experienced leaders in public education. Your previous educational experience includes serving as an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction for Fountain, Fort Carson, and Wichita, Kansas public schools. You were the principal of a large urban high school in Wichita after moving through the ranks of elementary and middle schools as teacher and principal in the Wichita public school system. And you served on the Education Commission of the states and the Closing the Achievement Gap Commission, as well as many other organizations. And you're an adjunct professor, speaker, and writer. And you served as Colorado's Commissioner of Education from 2007 to 2010. And you were the superintendent for the Clark County School District, which is the nation's 5th largest district and includes Las Vegas, Nevada from 2010 to 2013. But your most important job is dad to 3 amazing children. And I'll let you share a little bit more in a second after I introduce Dr. Carrie Olson, who is one of my longtime friends, who I'm so excited to see you move up and be in leadership in Denver Public Schools as our president of the school board. And Dr. Olson brings over 35 years of experience in education and to your role as the school board president. And you earned your BA in elementary education and Spanish from Wartburg College in Iowa, and an MA in curriculum and instruction from the University of Colorado, Denver, and a PhD in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in Holocaust and genocide education from the University of Denver. And you are a national board certified teacher as a middle childhood generalist. Yes, since 1999, and you're fluent in Spanish. And in recent years, you have accepted many assignments with the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. You became a trainer with the Belfort Conference, worked with university professors to train pre-service teachers as part of the Holocaust Institute for Teacher Educators, and assisted the Conference for Holocaust Education Centers to run a conference in cooperation with the Texas Holocaust and Genocide Commission. Wow, look at, I know, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Like, I was like, that's just like a tiny bit of both of your bios. Okay, so welcome, Mr. Jones. We are so excited that you are going to be our interim superintendent to kind of get us through the rest of the year. We love Susanna. I have so much respect for her, and I wish her all the best. I mean, Dallas is really getting a gem of a leader in Susanna. So I know you've got some great plans, and Dr. Olson, you've got some great plans, and you're listening to the community. And so there have been challenges, right? And it's a complex issue. Public education is a complex issue. And we had these complex issues before COVID, but now here we are, and the complex issues are exacerbated. One of the things you guys talked about even last night in the school board meeting was how we're going to potentially address the delivery of rigorous education. What have been some of the challenges that you guys have heard in delivering equitable education to our students right now? Who wants to?
Dwight's the expert. I gotta let Dwight start with this one. This is perfect for him.
Well, I'd be glad to respond. Thank you, President Olson, and Priscilla. Thank you so much for having us on. It's great opportunity to have a conversation about education. So thank you for creating the space and inviting us to that space. Some of the things that you shared about Dr. Olson, I didn't even know. Wow, so impressive. So I have new newfound respect for you, Dr. Olson, based on the respect I already had for you. So fantastic. And, when we think about, Priscilla, challenges in education, what I really appreciate, and you mentioned it, Superintendent Susana Cordova has really taken that head on, and some of the ways that she's taken that and the board has endorsed it has been around looking at equity, that we make sure we think about educating kids in a little different kind of way, making sure they get what they need versus everybody getting the same. And so her making equity a cornerstone of how this district's going to operate, and then the board supporting that equity push, and because it's hard work, and the board making a commitment to make the equity cornerstone part of their crisis priorities, that so even though we're in the pandemic, we're not losing sight of the things that matter most. And that's going to be making sure we educate all of our kids, but with a real focus on our students of color. And that we're going to continue to support making sure that we help students catch up, that we train around culturally responsive education and what our teachers need and the support they need and how we need to listen to our kids. But more importantly, how we try to identify what might be missing, or what are you lacking, or what do you need, or what's a resource that we need to provide. So working with all of our principals. So it's such a broad question. We could just spend the whole time talking about it, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. Number one, the board passed a resolution around the Black Excellence Resolution, which really says that with our students of color, especially with the focus on our Black students, which right now have, in some cases, have the steepest climb, that we're going to commit to saying that we're going to do better, and we can do better. And to do better, we're going to say, we're going to put a focus on that every school in the district would form in their school improvement plan, a disproportionality statement or a commitment to say, we're going to target our African-American and Black students, and we're going to lift them up. And it's going to be a focus in our school. We're going to have that conversation with our community, and what actually gets written down and the resources put towards it actually gets done. So I am happy to announce that 100% of Denver Public Schools have created that plan, and now we're actually reviewing the plans and talking about what supports do schools need to actually carry that out. I think that is such a testament of Superintendent Cordova's commitment to this work, but also the commitment of our Board of Education to say it matters, and it matters enough that we're going to assure that every building in the district makes that commitment. Second thing, I just want to make sure that I highlight is just the teachers in this district are so amazing, and how our teachers step up every day on behalf of our children is just, it is what every parent wants to have happen. And I just want to give a shout out to, these are really difficult times, but the messages and the conversations and the emails that I regularly get from teachers around how much I miss my students, how much I care about them and want to get back to making sure that they're okay, making sure that their learning is cared for. So, the Board of Education made not only focusing on educating our kids, but also talking about where learning might be lost in crisis priority 3. And that is to say that even though in remote, we know some kids do better in remote than others, we're going to make their learning a priority. And Tamara Acevedo and her team in academics are not only spending time on that, we're making sure that we're also thinking about, come summertime, how do we help kids catch up? How do we find out what kids might be missing? Some kids that maybe aren't engaging at the level they need to. How are we following up with those kids? How are we tracking them down? If internet is a problem, how are we doing? It's just all hands on deck. And that's what I'm really proud of. And that's what my job as interim is, to make sure we continue that focus and continue that work. Sorry for the long answer. I promise.
That's
So long.
So do you think we'll offer more robust summer school options for more children? Is that kind of a direction you think we might go?
Oh, I think it's not only a direction, I think there's already work underway on what that will look like. And and making it more accessible, and making sure that we also are doing the diagnostic work that's necessary to say, what did kids miss or where are those gaps, so that it's also very targeted, so that it's not just a random, we hope you get what you need. We're going to be insistent that you get what you need, because some kids are falling further behind. And therefore, we've got to help them catch up faster. And so there's going to be a real focus. But yes, the quick answer is yes, there is a real commitment to summer learning and supporting and what kids need, not just for especially some of our high school kids, but also for our elementary kids. And even we'll probably be looking at ECS and what supports we can do for some of our youngest learners. So it's, again, all hands on deck for all of our students.
That's a great segue. So Kerry, you and I were working together this past year on the Reimagine the SPF committee, and I learned so much about federal law and state law that I didn't know and understand. It was baptism by fire being in that committee. So I know there's a recommendation to ask the legislature to not have CMAS testing again this year. So now my question is, and a lot of teachers have a question about, if we're not going to formally assess through standardized testing, is there a way that we can go forward with knowing where children are so that we can help? Because if there's no, what does that assessment look like, not only for students, but also for educators, so that we know like how far we need to support students?
And actually, Dwight could probably answer that better than I can, because I have not been intimately involved in those conversations about what we're asking teachers to do, because you and I know that a lot of times we know as teachers where our students are, because we are with them day in and day out. Even in remote learning, I've watched as I work with my apprentice teachers at DU and how they assess their students and how they figure out where the students have been, where they are now in this lesson, and where they need to go, and how to get everybody there. So I might just turn that one right back over to Dwight, because I know he's been in those conversations with Tamara Acevedo and Mike Ramirez.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. And Priscilla, there's right now it's a question that has no definitive answer. The state is still talking about and thinking about, whether we do, what that might look like, what's the potential there. The U.S. Department of Education right now, and the Secretary of Education has not given states a waiver to not do it at this point. And so states are still operating at that. We know that transition is coming to the president-elect. And so I don't know if that will be a different message that will come out to states, where states will have more autonomy on whether they will then start to have conversations with their district about what makes sense. Right now we're still focused on trying to make sure we can get students back to in-person learning. And until we can do that, it's pretty hard to make some definitive decisions about what assessments might look like, because we've got to get back in school first. And that's, as everybody knows, that's a real challenge for a variety of reasons. And the reasons are very legit. I do know that we are supportive of making sure that we continue to, even if they're district-led assessments, that we assess to get diagnostic information. We have to know where our kids are, and they can't have us guess at that. We need to be very clear. I spoke to that a little bit earlier. When we think about summer school, we want to make sure that when the students are coming into summer school, we have a good data map as to how we can best support them and what they need, and that teachers have access to that. So I think teachers would say, we still need to make sure we have diagnostic information on our kids to know where they're at, what their growth looks like, or are they catching up, moving up, or keeping up? And so it's our job to make sure that even regardless of what the state does, that we continue to work with our building leaders to make sure that we have the kind of information that teachers need to make good instructional decisions.
So you're giving me great segues. So reopening schools, I know that's like the hot topic with students and parents and teachers across the nation. So people can go online and read the plan. And this is something I'm really proud of with Denver Public Schools, because we're always a leader, in so many things with education. The plan is online. So January 5th through 8th, all K-12 students begin the semester in remote learning. Discovery Link will provide remote learning support centers at 30 sites, and families can learn more and register, and schools may choose to run remote learning support centers. And then by January 11th, all ECE through 5th grade students, including SPED centers and newcomer center students, will return to in-person. And I know for so many of our students, especially our SPED students, need that in-person support. I'm seeing a difference now that we've been remote with some of our SPED students. I've noticed in the last 2 weeks a difference in their coursework. So I'm excited to know that we are going back. And then by January 19th through 29th, other secondary students will begin gradual phase in. And I think this is encouraging news. How are you all making these decisions? I know you're talking with health officials, but what is the algorithm that you guys are using to decide to go back in person?
Yeah, so, and Kerry, please jump in. We've been working really closely with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, as well as with Denver Health. And, it is our hope to go back in the new year, but we'll only do that if the health situation means that it's safe for us to go back. And so our doctors and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, CDPHE, and Denver Health are guiding that decision. So our decision on whether we go back and how we do that safely is really based on the health officials. And those are the officials that we've been working with. I do know that, it continues to evolve. I think we continue to be, I always say, allow yourself to be smarter tomorrow than you are today. And with this pandemic, I think the doctors continue to learn, and we continue to learn about what conditions, it's just like the PN 95 mask. We know that those masks are really beneficial to help keep us safe, but we also know some of the teachers are concerned about my voice it's hard for students to hear me. It's hard to wear the mask all day. They fit tight around your nose. So, we're mindful of all of those things, but we also have learned a lot more about how we can keep our employees and keep our students safe so that we don't have transmission. And, I'm still happy to say that, students in school and staff in school seems to be safer than out in the community. And we've had a lower spread of the virus actually in school. And especially, we've only been back right now with our elementary schools and our centers. We've not been back with our secondary schools since March. And so we know that we still have a lot to learn there, and that we've got to be mindful of the safety ramifications. But right now, the doctors are giving us new guidance around quarantine. We're better understanding that if you actually quarantine and have the right space 6 feet apart, that you may not have to quarantine the whole class. You may actually have a quarantine distance that we've learned now that, you're safe. The whole class may not have to be quarantined. The teacher may not have to be quarantined. Because some of the most difficult parts of going back has been around operations. As we've had large quarantines, it's been hard to staff the school and hard to keep it open. And so we still are working through some of those challenges, but we are optimistic that, and we need the community support. President Olson really spoke to that last night, and I hadn't planned to even come back on and say anything, but I just had to support the need of this being a partnership between the schools and the community. We need the community to, we have what we call DPS 5, wearing your mask, keeping your social distance, not having meetings together, washing your hands, the things that what we know through our health department that has a tremendous impact on the spread of the virus. So if we behave ourselves, if we can get the community to behave themselves, I think we're in a better position and can be optimistic that not only can we return based on the schedule you outlined, and thanks for doing that, but not only can we return safely. So that's, I don't know, President Olson, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Just to reiterate exactly what you said, like some people have said, well, it's not all that simple. We can't just follow the rules and go back to school. Actually, it is really that simple. We do need to do that. And I understand the challenges of teaching in the KN95 mask. They are uncomfortable. As an adjunct professor, when we were in person, I had to teach the people on Zoom and the people in the classroom with the mask on all at the same time. I know it's hard, but I've also started hearing from more and more teachers who say, I'm really looking forward to going back to see my students.
Yeah.
Just make sure everybody's following the health protocols. So again, the DPS-5 are really important. Don't come to work if you're sick. Make sure you're wearing your mask. Make sure that you are washing your hands. Make sure that you're practicing social distancing. And if you see something, say something. It's not a bad thing to use the integrity hotline that's in the Commons. If you see at your school, maybe groups of people getting together to eat, and it is awkward. So don't take that on yourself. When you call or email the Integra hotline, it goes outside of DPS. And then anonymous, we don't even know who it is. We can do a review at your school if you don't feel comfortable talking to your principal about something. And I know myself, not in DPS or in DU, but in another group I belong to, they invited me to come to a meeting and we were supposed to be outside. And then some of them said, oh no, let's just go inside. This was before the numbers got high. And I was like, I don't feel very comfortable with that. But I said, I felt like a teenager showing up at a party where I was told no one was going to be drinking and everybody was. And I had to be the one saying, I don't feel comfortable drinking. So it is very awkward, but that is what we need to do. I know now a lot of families are thinking about their holiday plans and recognize you're not maybe going to be able to spend it with the people that you love. And you're going to have to do it on a screen, but we all have to do this to be able to get our schools back in session. I think getting kids back in school safely for the staff, for the teachers, custodians, front office staff, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, everybody, we all need to come together to get our students in front of our teachers because we know how important that is, but also we need to be safe. So I recognize that that's a tension, but I'm up for the work. And I know that Dwight Jones is the best person to lead us through this next transition time of DPS. As you can see, he knows this very well.
Well, I want you to know you do have a lot of support to reopen. I think that's been an increasing conversation now that we're on this, so many months in. The conversation obviously has morphed from March until now. Because you being a college professor, I have this idea that we need to get some of our the younger students who want to become teachers into the schools. Okay, so this is my pitch. Why don't we get them in? We can pay them the sub rate since they're not maybe in person right now. They can park it in one of the schools for the year or for a half a year and be, under a master teacher, but learning how to be a teacher. I mean, is that something that's a possibility, or is that just too complicated?
Well, I can tell you what, again, Dwight might have a better answer than I do, but all of the students that I supervise, I shouldn't say all, most of them have come to me and said, I really want to be able to help out at my school when something happens. We make them get their substitute teacher license. So they're all in the process of that. And I think of one of the teachers that I supervise, she was a first grade teacher and she got to school one day and her teacher didn't feel well. And he's like, I think I have to go home. I felt fine when I got here, but there's something wrong. And her principal said, oh, we can't get anybody here quickly. She's like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And she was ready. She was a couple of months in, but we all remember that. We're all teachers on this call. That first moment when you realize you're in charge of all the students. She did a fabulous job, and she ended up being the substitute teacher while her mentor teacher was out. And there are several other of my apprentice teachers who are the same thing. They're pitching in. They're saying, how can I help? Could I take this group? If a teacher's out sick, let me help. I'm also heartened by the community members who have signed up to volunteer. I think of a parent in my district who has gotten other parents to come to do, when we were in person, to do playground supervision, to do lunchroom supervision, to just say it's all hands on deck. Central office staff, I have to give a shout out to them. 20% of their time has been spent in our schools. I know our school board members have also volunteered to go in and help. It is all hands on deck. And I think we are already using our pre-service teachers in a way of being a substitute teacher. I know one of my students was trying to figure out, like, do I want to be like a long-term sub when an opportunity came up? And we said, it's a fabulous opportunity, but not at the expense of you not learning what you need to learn over this year of becoming a teacher. Like, that balance needs to be there, because we all remember what that was like. It's really overwhelming with your course workload when you're in college and you see your friends who are maybe going in another field and they don't have all the field work hours, and you're like, I have to be at school and I have to do my homework. So we are already tapping into that.
Well, awesome. I'm looking at the time and I'm going to practice my good pacing skills. We have 2 minutes and then we're all off in our different meetings to follow up. So Dwight, I'm going to give you the last word. You can make it fun, you can make it serious, but do you want to take us out?
I would be glad to. Let me just first say, Priscilla, again, thank you so much for inviting President Olson and I to talk about Denver Public Schools. We like to talk about Team DPS, and Team DPS is not only internal, we actually think Team DPS spreads across the city. We have so many partnerships in our community and listening to our parents. And we know that the board is right now in the process of putting together their what they're going to focus on as they start to think about a superintendent search. So I just wanted to close by encouraging folks to follow up, check the emails. There's going to be so many opportunities for you to get engaged and make sure that your voice is heard. The board has been very transparent about wanting to listen and hear from the community as it relates about the superintendent search. I will be the interim superintendent. We're looking at about a 6 months transition, and I am very excited for the amazing leaders that I know are going to be interested in wanting to be the next superintendent in Denver Public Schools. It is a fantastic place to be. It's a great place to work. And the focus of the work is just right. It's all about kids. And so I would just say that I know there's some upcoming meetings. I know there's a listening session on Wednesday, I think next week, President Olson. May I yield the last few minutes to let her give some updates, because I know the board is so wanting to make sure the public has an opportunity to engage with them in this process.
Yes, we do have a special public comment session next Wednesday night from 5:30 to 7:30, longer if we need. And we know that's not community engagement, how we want to do community engagement, but we wanted to start out with a public comment session because we've had so many people say they'd like to share their ideas with us. And it's a great place to start. We will be looking forward to a more robust community engagement. We're going to be meeting with our FACE team. And also I've reached out to just some other school board members from across the country who are doing superintendent searches and just trying to learn about the creative new ideas in a virtual environment on how to get people involved. Also thinking that we just went out to the community 2 years ago and said, what do you want to see? And we just did the Reimagine SPF. We have the Bailey Report. We have the African American Equity Task Force. We have Strengthening Neighborhoods Initiative. We've got a lot of different things that we can look at and get feedback on, but more to come. And we should do one of these, Priscilla, on national boards. As I was sitting here thinking about it, I thought we should do a little Facebook Live and get Kim Ursetta and some of our other friends who are the OGs of the national board world. See if we can get more teachers involved, because it's such a fabulous professional development.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk.
My second renewal. This is my second renewal right now. So, okay. Let's do this again. I'd love to catch up maybe after a few months, and thank you so much, and Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and God bless you both. And thank you for all your work in DPS.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.